Hi students, how many of you are preparing for UGC NET English, that is 2022, or even December 2022, or even for the other examinations as well? If you are actually a genuine scholar and a student of English literature and you wish to excel in your preparation, especially for UGC NET, PGT, TGT, DIC mains, IAS PCS, listen this to lecture of 20th century poetry. This is unit number 2, poetry. You must have seen in your syllabus, students, that the syllabus is divided into 10 units. I'm telling you this thing for the new students who might not be knowing and who wish to prepare, who wish to excel. So students, there are 10 units. So unit 1 is drama. Few days before, I had taken a session of drama also, which you can see in my channel. The second unit is called poetry, which is unit number 2, and especially in this particular unit poetry, I am taking the area of the 20th century, which generally students live it. And today you will be able to understand why this portion is very much important. Otherwise, when the student they study at my application OSN Academy at the Google Play Store, you have to download the app OSN Academy at the Google Play Store, and when you go into the class, you will find every unit wise I teach, and there are approximately 10 classes, 10-15 classes per unit, especially those units which are big in quantity. The lectures are too much in comparison to some units which have few lectures in them. Fine. So coming to the point, even if the students who are listening me, they are preparing for MA English entrance, they are preparing for any examination of English literature, this session will be very suitable for them to make them understand that what is this 20th century, that is the modern poetry, the modern age. Fine. And you can say the modern tendencies, the main tendencies of poetry in the modern period. And yes, when this 20th century opens, students, जब ये 20th century open होता है, yesterday also few students from different states of India, they have joined the classes of the UGC NET, the new batch, and by the evening they messaged me that sir, the classes were excellent and we are amazed to have such classes at the application which they were not getting through the YouTube channels also. So my dear students, those who are actually in the process of qualifying this examination may get into the system. So what happens that when the 20th century opens, I'm talking about the 20th century, we will talk about 20th century. ये जब open होता है, then क्या हुआ था कि Tennyson had been dead 9 years. मतलब Tennyson को मरे, he had died 9 years before. He had been dead 9 years. And in the public, in the entire atmosphere, there was a great impression, a widespread impression that English poetry had died with, Tennyson. इसको हिंदी में ऐसे समझिए कि जब टेनिसन की डेथ हो गई थी आज से 9 साल पहले, तो लोगों ने ऐसा समझा कि पोइट्री हैड डाइड विद टेनिसन एंड नाउ देयर विल बी नो पोइट्री, नो पोएट्स, नथिंग लाइक दैट. सो टू द क्रिटिक्स ऑफ द अर्लियर 20th century, it seemed that the heydays, the glorious days, the happy days of the English poetry, of the English poetic muse were over. It is all past. It is all the story of the past days. And what was to follow was going to be something very wayward, something very obscure. And so we can say that the poetry of this period has shown a distinct decline. एकदम से decline देखा गया. We can say not in a very general level of execution, but as far as genius is concerned, as far as the variety is concerned, as far as the breadth of the range is concerned, we emphatically saw the great decline. Fine. Radha Devi, good afternoon. Tabassum, hello sir. Devina, good afternoon. I am fine, Radha. How are you? Are you preparing for any examination, students? बहुत सारे बच्चे ऐसे होंगे जो हमें लाइव देख रहे होंगे, but they are not in the comment box. So they may come here and they may even talk to me. Deepmala, good afternoon Deepmala. So you should also tell here on the message box that sir, I am preparing for this examination, so that according to your examination, your target examination, I may be able to guide you that you have to do this thing. Now what happened, that there were many apprehensions. There were many apprehensions rather of the critics, and that too of the modern age. And they were rather, misplaced. And modern poetry has to give a rich harvest of the poetic thought in the style, in the diction, especially peculiar to that age. Fine. So the fact is that, सच्चाई ये है that in the modern age there has been no dearth. Dearth मतलब होता है कमी. किसी प्रकार की कोई कमी नहीं थी बड़े poets की. In the modern age, students, in the 20th century, there has been no dearth of great poets, or even we can say great poems that have stood the test of time and that have become, एक word है imperishable, indispensable, that has become a part of the imperishable history heritage of England, that has become the indispensable, priceless part of the literary heritage of England. So we have got many great poets, many great authors, many great poems who have even stood the test of the time, and they have become epical in certain ways. Fine. Yes sir, I have got exam of UGC NET 2021. Pushpa Saini. Hi Pushpa. Deepmala. Sir, I am preparing for NET JRF. I have given the examination of NET 2021. So Radha, so are you students, have you ever spoken to me telephonically, or you ever have visited my application of OSN Academy? Radha, Deepmala or Pushpa? But because there are many names which are very common, so all these names I have students in my application, in my system, who are of same names, but your name, you may be different, they may be different, because some names are common. For example, there is a name Jyoti. So I have 5-6 Jyotis in my class. There is a name Neha. So there are 5-6-7 Nehas in my class. So unless and until I have not been connected with the student telephonically, I am not able to understand that who is student is for which vertical and for which class. Pranav Roy, good afternoon sir. Radha Devi, I am preparing for GIC lecturer. Radha Devi, आप मुझे confirm नहीं है, because there are so many students studying in the GIC batch. Have you taken the admission in the GIC batch? And Anil Gautam, good morning Anil. So if in case this GIC student, you are not still you have a lot of time and you can complete your course, you can even revise your course. And for the UGC NET students, I would just advise them that if they have not taken admission and they want to excel in the June examination, the coming examination, so they may not waste their time, because the content and the class syllabus is too vast that you have to save each and every day to excel and to make your career. Fine. Radha Devi, I am new. Okay, आप new हैं, इसलिए you should talk to me telephonically, Radha, if you feel so, or otherwise you just download the application OSN Academy from the Play Store and get into it and take the admission in the GIC mains lecture from today onwards. So now students, coming back to the 20th century, see, poetry today, I will discuss about, the various themes, because if we are discussing the 20th century, we have to discuss about the various themes. But vacancy ही नहीं आ रही है GIC की. Radha Devi, already the innumerable students, I don't have any counts, they are studying on the application of GIC mains. I think you have some confusion. You should talk to me telephonically, Radha. The numbers are given on the screen and I will give you the direct number. Just type the direct number here. You can note it down. So, if I talk about the various themes, students, poetry आज की डेट में, poetry today can be written on almost any subject. किसी भी subject में हम poetry लिख सकते हैं आज की डेट में. And if I talk about the 20th century oblique modern poet, so this modern poet has always been, finding inspiration from the things which the earlier generations poets did not find. Like, for example, that the modern poets find inspiration from, railway trains, they find inspiration from tram cars, they find inspiration from the snake charmer and telephone, and even things which are of very commonplace interest. And modern poets have not accepted the theory of great subjects for poetic composition. No. The whole universe is the modern poet's experience. जो पूरा ये गैलेक्सी है, ये पूरा जो यूनिवर्स है, ये क्या है? ये मॉडर्न पोएट का ही एक एक्सपीरियंस है. उनका ये कहना है कि द होल कंट्री, द होल वर्ल्ड is the modern poet's experience, and he writes on themes of real life, and also makes excursion in the world of religion, in the world of mysticism, in the world of fairyland. So they do excursion in this field. And that is why if you see the great poems like by W.B. Yeats or T.S. Eliot or so many great poets of the modern world, they have written poems on religion, mysticism, fairyland. And we have actually a variety of poems such as, the Songs of Train. Have you heard the name? The Songs of Train. The Songs of Train by John Davidson. By John. Now see, this is the angle which you have to know for these high level of examinations. So this is of importance, students, that this is not given in the market books. Fine. Now, एक और poem है, Goods Train at Night. गुड्स ट्रेन एट नाइट, ये किसने लिखी है? ये लिखी है केनेथ एशले. केनेथ, ASHLEY. Kenneth Ashley. Then there is also a modern poet known as Edmund Goose. उसने एक पोएम लिखा है जिसका नाम है द चारकोल बर्नर. एडमंड गूज. एक और पोएम है मशीन गन्स बाय रिचर्ड एडलिंगटन. रिचर्ड have you heard these names, students, especially for the UGC net preparation? Radha, you are talking about the new vacancy for pre-exam. Always remember one thing very carefully, कि जब notification आ जाएगा, when the government will release the notification, when they will say now I am giving you the vacancy, then when you will prepare, then it will not happen. The preparation is done many years in advance. The UGC net aspirants, those who are serious, those who know, those who are career oriented, they start their preparations when they are in BA Part 1 or BA Part 3 or MA Part 1. The IAS students, the PCS students, they start preparing their mains when they are in BA Part 1 or BA Part 2 or BA Part 3 or even in MA Part first year. The IIT, the engineers, the medical doctors who qualify the IITs or the NEET examination, they start preparing from the class 9th. They don't wait that the government will release the forms of NEET, they will release the forms of IIT, Roorkee, PMT, and then they will start preparing for their engineering. Then another 5 years, nothing will happen. So each and every examination of the country has to be prepared much in advance. So why students you don't understand that when the notification will come, so by that time 90% of students have finished their course and they are revising, and then you will be starting your course. So this will not work. Fine, I am sure you must have understood कि students छोटे छोटे सोचिए, क्लास 7th 8th से शुरू कर देते हैं इंजीनियरिंग बनना, 7th 8th 9th से शुरू कर देते हैं बच्चे मेडिकल डॉक्टर्स की तैयारी करना, then they are able to qualify the top level examinations. So in the same way, the competition is so high in every examination that you have to prepare much in advance. So those who follow my guidance, they are actually able to get that level very profoundly and very comfortably. Otherwise, it takes years together and the students are unable to understand that why I am not able to qualify. Fine. So next हम लोग चलते हैं आगे. So these are the great important the modern poets and the modern names. The Charcoal Burner by Edmund Goose, Machine Guns by Richard Edlington, The Songs of Train by John Davidson, and The Good Strain at Night by Kenneth Ashley. इसके बाद एक और भी हैं, आपने नाम सुना होगा वॉल्टर डी ला मेयर. तो वॉल्टर डी ला मेयर ने एक पोएम लिखी थी लिसनर्स. So that is also a modern poem with a great name, that is Walter de la Mare. And इनके जो मूड होते हैं, in their moods also modern poets are very varied and they do not belong to a single group. Fine. सच्चाई ये है कि इनके पास variety of moods होता है among other poets, and they are able to write in a lot many subjects as far as great variety is concerned. Fine. And modern poetry की अगर हम बात करें, which the topic today is about modern poetry in the unit 2, that is poetry. Modern poetry is marked, अगर हम यहाँ लिखते हैं modern poetry for example, ये जो modern poetry है is marked with a note of humanitarianism. पहले लिखिए humanitarianism. And democratic feeling. The modern poet, more than Wordsworth, is interested in the life of laborers. They are interested in the life of toilers. They are interested in the life of the workers in the field. The modern poet perceives in the daily struggles of these people the same potentialities of the spiritual conflict than the older poets found in those of the exalted rank. Now we can say John Masefield, Gibson, John Masefield, Gibson, Galsworthy, they are mainly interested in the common things, common man, and their sufferings in their poetry. There is a note of sympathy for their miserable lot. And the great horrors also find an expression in their poetry. Now, there is a poem known as Consecration. Consecration. C-O-N. ये किसने लिखा है? मेसफील्ड ने. Is a representative poem bringing out the modern poets' concern with the life of the common people. Fine. इस पोएम में पोएट कहता है, कवि कहता है that others may sing of the wealth and the mirth. Others may sing of the wealth and the mirth, but I will be singing about the dust and the scum of the earth. So the modern poet is basically interested not only in the lives of the poor people, but he is equally inspired to the sympathetic lot of the animals too. If you remember, if you have heard, Galsworthy की एक poem है Stupidity Street. Stupidity Street. So this poem by Galsworthy pleads for greater sympathy for birds. So these are the things which are of importance, which you will not find in, the market books and the guides. Now, there is a term known as realism. इसको समझते हैं आप? Realism in modern poetry. इसको समझते हैं स्टूडेंट्स आप? Realism. Keep a two-way connection, students. Sumanta Kumar. Hello, Sumanta. Keep a two-way connection so that it feels that yes, you are here, you are vigilant. Nishat Anjum, Georgian poet. Okay. See, if I talk about realism in modern poetry, then the poetry of the 20th century is marked with a note of realism. Fine. And realism in modern poetry, it was what? It was the product of a reaction against the pseudo-romanticism. Pseudo मतलब होता है false. Realism in modern poetry was the product of a reaction against the pseudo-romanticism of the last century over and above the influence of science. Because the modern poet sees life, paints it as it is, with all its warts, with all its ugliness. And he tears the veil which the early romanticists had hung between life and art. Are you able to get my point? What is realism in modern poetry? Hello, DVS coaching. Hello DVS. How are you? Now, there are poets. I can take the name of the few, like Robert Frost. Edmund Blendon. Gibson. John Masefield. These are all poets of realism in modern poetry. Classes are already continuing, students. Daily the classes are continuing in my application for the various verticals of English literature pan-India. The IAS students are studying their IAS syllabus. PSS students are studying their PCS syllabus. UGC NET, GIC, TGT, PGT, LT grade, MA English entrance, all these verticals with their proper syllabus, the students study at the application. Fine. So, those who feel they may study, good. Yes. So, ये मैंने आपको बताया, देखिए कि रॉबर्ट फ्रॉस्ट, एडमंड ब्लंडन, गिब्सन, जॉन मैसफील्ड, these are the poets of realism in the modern poetry. Now, आपको शायद नहीं पता होगा कि रॉबर्ट फ्रॉस्ट ने एक पोएम लिखा है जिसका नाम है गम गैदरर। गम गैदरर। एडमंड ब्लंडन ने एक पोएम लिखा है जिसका नाम है द पुअर मैंस। यहां पे एक वर्ड है, मैं भूल रहा हूं, देयर इज अ वर्ड विच आई एम फॉरगेटिंग हियर। एंड गिब्सन ने एक पोएम लिखा है जिसका नाम है द स्टोन। गिब्सन ने द स्टोन। एंड जॉन मेसफील्ड ने यह लिखा है, याद आ गया, कार्गोज। कार्गोज। These are the names of the poems of the particular author. और एक और लिख लीजिए, रूपर्ट ब्रूक ने स्टूडेंट्स लिखा है, आप उसको नोट कर लीजिए, द ग्रेट लवर। द ग्रेट लवर। दिस पोएम, this poem नहीं बल्कि these all poems they strike the note of realism in modern poetry, जो हमारा टॉपिक था। फाइन। नाउ एक चीज और है, एक पहलू और है इसका। वो ये पहलू है दैट अभी तक तो हमने बात की गुड पोएम्स, द नोट ऑफ रियलिज्म जिनमें है, बट द बेस्ट एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ रियलिज्म इन मॉडर्न पोइट्री इज टू बी फाउंड इसको ध्यान से पढ़िए। द बेस्ट एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ रियलिज्म, बेस्ट एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ, इसको लिख सकते हैं, यानी की बात है, इन मॉडर्न पोइट्री इज टू बी फाउंड इन वॉर पोएट्स। विल्फ्रेड ओवन, ग्रेव्स, और एक नाम और था, ससून। यस, who have described vividly and even realistically the horrors of war in a language that sometimes shocks the poetic sensibility. Understood, students? Now you may ask me questions if you wish to. ये रियलिस्टिक एलिमेंट था स्टूडेंट्स, द एलिमेंट ऑफ रियलिज्म इन मॉडर्न पोइट्री। सो दिस इज एक्चुअली द कंटेंट targeted, experienced, rich, which will make your subconscious nurture with the best, and then when you sit in the examination you feel confident. Fine. Now we will talk about the romantic element in modern poetry. How can we forget the romantic element in modern poetry? हाँ, अब तक हम लोगों ने ये देख लिया कि yes, there was a lot of preponderance of realism in the modern poetry, but the spirit of romance always continues to sway the minds of certain poets. And the spirit of romance which swayed the minds of certain modern poets, I will ask you, who are those poets? This is a very genuine question for you students who have been preparing, who are preparing, who are taking the exam, who feel like that yes, they have been studying good and they must know it. So now my question is a very genuine and a simple question, that in the field of romance, the spirit of romance which always continued to sway the minds of certain poets, who are those poets जिनके साथ ऐसा होता था? Yes, DBS coaching, yes, each and everything is at the, ये क्वेश्चन ही आपका कोई इसका वो नहीं बेटा, क्योंकि जब हम प्रॉपर सिलेबस सभी एप्लीकेशन पे, आप OSN एकेडमी का एप्लीकेशन जब खोलिए, उसको डाउनलोड करिए, तो वहां पे आप स्टोर पे जाइए, देखिएगा आपके पास 15 वर्टिकल्स आपको दिखेंगे इंग्लिश लिटरेचर के, सबका सिलेबस और सबके स्क्रीन पे सामने लिखा हुआ है, अगर ग्रामर है तो वो भी लिखा हुआ है. So the entire syllabus is completed. So this question I don't think so that आपने इसको क्यों पूछा है. अगर लैंग्वेज जिसमें नहीं है, जैसे UGC नेट में लैंग्वेज नहीं होता ज्यादा, यूनिट होता है, यूनिट 1 से यूनिट 10, तो सारे यूनिट कम पढ़ाए जाते हैं. PGT में ग्रामर होता है तो ग्रामर भी है, TGT में भी है, GIC में भी है, तो जैसा जिसका सिलेबस वैसा आपका कोर्स. फाइन. एनी क्वेश्चंस? सो आपसे मैंने एक क्वेश्चन पूछा अभी जस्ट, किसी ने अभी तक जवाब नहीं दिया है, दैट हु आर दोज पोएट्स जिनके माइंड को स्वे कर देता था स्पिरिट ऑफ रोमांस. 1 2 3 4 5, करीब 5 नाम तो मुझे याद आ रहे हैं. आपको कोई भी नाम याद आ गए हो तो बता दीजिए. पहला, वॉल्टर डी ला मेयर. अब मैं ही लिख दूंगा तो आप बता ही नहीं पाएंगे, इसलिए आप भी जल्दी जल्दी टाइप करिए. नहीं नहीं नहीं, गलत बता रहे हैं आप. कहां कीट चले गए आप? हम 20th सेंचुरी की बात कर रहे हैं, आप कीट चले गए. कीट कहां 20th सेंचुरी का था? दीज आर द फ्यू नेम्स जिनका रोमांटिक स्पिरिट से हमेशा माइंड स्वे करता रहता था. एंड द वर्क्स ऑफ दीज पोएट्स have the fact that the spirit of romance is as old as life itself. मतलब we cannot take out the spirit of romance according to them, because वो उतना ही पुराना है जितना जिंदगी पुरानी है. And if I talk about वॉल्टर डी ला मेयर, तो वॉल्टर डी ला मेयर की जो पोइट्री है that is basically saturated with the true romantic spirit. True romantic spirit you will find, and that true romantic spirit which is bordering on, बॉर्डर होता है ना, बॉर्डरिंग ऑन सुपरनैचुरलिज्म. सो दैट इज द स्पेशलिटी ऑफ वॉल्टर डी ला मेयर. सो इसके साथ साथ with Walter de la Mare, the ghosts, the fairies of the old world have come into their own in the 20th century. So, students, this was, a session which made you understand that how to study good, how to study the 20th century, how to study the unit poetry, in chronological sequence, and the content has to be very rich and very targeted and very much experienced. All these things we will not be able to get in those market books जो आप लोग बच्चों खरीदते नहीं UGC नेट की. So उसको आप बिल्कुल भी उसको खरीद सकते हैं, but that will not work for your selection level. Fine. And if you have any questions, students, you may download the application according to your choice. If you have any queries, you can ask me and you can WhatsApp me on the given number. And I hope you would have liked the session. Press the bell icon and subscribe the channel so that you may get the notification, those students who are new at this channel. Thank you so much.